Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Whales of Wall Street. A Zilliqa video for you guys today, ZIL on the exchange. This is a project that I've had in my portfolio for a number of years. One actually that I picked up from watching cheeky crypto videos back in 2020. So yeah, it's been sat in my portfolio since. I have been staking. We'll go into a bit more detail in that shortly. But we'll also be talking about why I've still got it in the portfolio, why I think it's still something worth holding. But if you're new to Zilliqa, it's definitely something to have a look into for sure. We'll give a few comparisons into some of its competitors shortly. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to smash that subscribe button if you are enjoying the content that you see in front of you. And of course, smash the like button as well. And I will do a very quick mention that you may see this part here of Whales Hydrogen. There's no videos on it yet. Hopefully get one or two done this week. I will be ploughing into some interesting hydrogen stocks outside of the crypto market as well. It's another area and interest of mine, certainly from an investment perspective. And we may start delving into an AI related channel as well, just because of my experience in both my career and within the crypto sphere today. In the AI space, there's lots to talk about in that topic, of course, and the multitude of the world of progression in artificial intelligence. Don't forget as well to check out the other videos on the channel currently on the Whales of Wall Street. Loads of different topics and discussions as always, and including some new potential gems. I do think we pick out a few every now and then. Swisstronic is definitely one to have a look at if you haven't seen or heard of that before. I didn't hear about this till last week, so very interesting to me for sure. But anyway, let's go into Zilliqa. As I said, ZIL on the exchange, currently floating around 2 cents. We'll go into a bit more chart detail or more in-depth chart detail shortly, but just to quickly remind people, 2021 was the highest all-time area for Zilliqa, around about 23-24 cents. So quite further advanced to where it is around its current price point, but do bear these price points in mind, as what we will be referring to or coming back to later on in this video, but also in relation to potential competitors to Zilliqa. So for those that don't know what Zilliqa is or who they are, this is a blockchain, obviously. Back in the day, I think I've mentioned this in a few videos recently as well, a lot of projects based their narratives at that time around things like scalability, and sharding was definitely a big part of that. I think I might mention that in the Harmony One video because they do quite similar. Sharding is, well, very much the aspect of essentially dividing the blockchain or network into smaller kind of elements in order to process those groups or shards to handle the transactions simultaneously. So when we're talking about the scalability factor, it was trying to pull in that emphasis that as the blockchain grows and evolves and AI comes in, IoT, etc., we will need the massive amount of networking capacity as much as possible, really, in all these different chains. We always talk about on various different videos, transactions per second. It's not just financial transactions. We're talking about every transfer of an action. So it's really about improving the efficiency and the throughput within these networks. So that was the sharding element, and the scalability we kind of just mentioned. That's basically the expansion. How much can we stretch that bandwidth of a network to accommodate all these things going on. So that was back in sort of 2020 when I was getting involved in purchasing and accumulating Zilliqa. Since then, I have been staking Zilliqa via the Zilliqa wallet. For those that don't know, you can actually go through their website. So if you ever do end up buying ZIL, it's definitely worth having a look into the aspect of staking. It's quite cool. You can link up your ledger and things like that, of course. There's a good APR. One thing I found quite interesting for me personally through bear markets is obviously trying to accumulate tokens as much as possible, but utilizing the staking aspect as well, because even just this 8.98%, okay, it may not be as big as some of the other ones out there, but it's like there and available. So when I was purchasing that Zilliqa, it was going straight into my account of my wallet and just staking nicely in there for the last sort of 2-3 years. So it's accumulated a lot of ZIL for me, which ultimately hopefully comes in my favor when we go back to that price point aspect in the charts. Yeah, if we get to 20 odd cents, well, that's great, because there's a big chunk of Zilliqa in my wallet that's been accumulated from that. So it's definitely worthwhile, and it's probably one of the other reasons why I've still got it in my portfolio, just taking advantage of things like that. So yeah, going back to that point actually about, is Zilliqa kind of like still a worthwhile investment? Well, I do still believe in its ability of, its scalability aspect. Again, like I've mentioned in previous videos recently, I feel like that narrative has died off a lot. I don't really think it's like the winning narrative anymore. We're obviously talking about things like the AI agents. Meme coins has got its thing going on. NFTs had its day, which still does. Obviously, NFTs will be an application of blockchain for forever, of course. But I meant that principle of NFTs when it was all like artworks and things like that at the very beginning. It was like a use case. It brought in the money to the market for sure. And there is a massive aspect as well of the interoperability side of things, but I think a lot of other networks, bigger networks, are taking care of that. And I think what we've seen, as I mentioned with the Harmony video, is, well, what kind of sets it apart? Because we've got things like Polkadot out there, we've got Solana, we've got Avalanche, we've got Algorand, all of which projects that I invest or hold in. I don't actually hold any Solana, can you believe it? Nor Avalanche. I think I had some AVAX years ago. I think I sold it off in the 2021-ish area. But I've always held the Algorand, Polkadot, bits of Ethereum here and there. For those that don't know my story of getting into crypto originally, I actually bought Ethereum. I think it was like £75 at the time. What was that back then? Maybe like $80-90. I sold it for like $1,500, and then that set me off on my way in the world of crypto investing. So those are kind of like, actually ironically naming those, they're probably like some of the key competitors really to Zilliqa. And ultimately, like, those projects are absolutely huge. I feel, in my opinion, they developed significantly more than Zilliqa, and they have some real strong use cases, not just in their original remits, but they've expanded and opened up to new areas and sectors as well. That being said though, the Zilliqa ecosystem is actually quite big. And another reason why I'm holding this is not just because that ecosystem keeps building and getting bigger, but I think there might come a time where maybe the new generation of crypto investors come in, or retail investors come in, and they're always going, oh, what's the next Solana, or what's the nearest thing to Solana? And when they're doing these comparisons, between like the likes of Zilliqa and other ones, they could go, well, and this sounds really stupid, but it's actually kind of psychologically what a lot of people do. So it would look like the next one in line, or the next one in ranking, because actually Zilliqa's got a ranking on CoinMarketCap, so it's based on market cap obviously, of 168. Now that's pretty decent considering how many crypto assets are actually out there. Yes, okay, a lot of that volume, a lot of that traction came from probably a few years back and is kind of clinging on to those areas, but it's still impressive. So it's on some major exchanges. I've always kind of bought mine originally through Binance and then eventually KuCoin. It was actually because Coinbase originally, I don't think ever had it. When I first started crypto, I was using Coinbase, and I was missing out on so many tokens, and I changed that philosophy to go and get new different accounts. So I think KuCoin and Binance were the next ones I got, and that allowed me to get things like VeChain, Zilliqa, loads of other ones. So back to my point, is that when they're looking at big ecosystems, or maybe the next chains for companies and systems to build on or develop on, okay, loads of developers are still utilizing Zilliqa and still trying to build on that for sure. But it could be a complete switch. You just never know. And that's why I think diversification is really important in a portfolio. To have two or three within each of those sectors, within each of those kind of categories of blockchain. Zilliqa does cover a lot of different categories. One thing I thought was quite interesting on here, and I'm sure it probably fits into things like tools and maybe in API some aspects. There's a mention of AI on here at the moment, so it does show you that a lot of those AI meme projects, although memes written here, are focused on some other networks at the moment. Costs, sharding, scalability, whatever. I felt Zilliqa could have had a really big opportunity in gaming back in the day. Ironically, I think I held some random tokens utilizing the Zilliqa platform, and I think they just disappeared off the face of the earth. But there's quite a few renowned projects on there. I mean, I'm not going through every single one, but even just at the top here, Achilles, I can't remember how you spell that or pronounce that. This was quite like Veracity, if I remember correctly. I think it's relating to proof of views and proof of digital advertising and things like that. There's a few games still stuck in here. A lot of these kind of like ones where they're not like built on Zilliqa, but they've had partnerships. I'm not really going to mention too many of them. I mean, a lot of it's, in my opinion, a bit of name dropping here to an extent. But yeah, as I said, it's one of those where you kind of sit there and you go, well, it's had good history. It's had good partnerships, it's had good projects. Not a massive fan of the partnership aspects. I don't always think that means anything too much these days. But you know, it has got a certain energy about it still, in my opinion, and it does have some good spikes in the charts every now and then. But even with that kind of aspect, for the last year or so, it has literally been at around this 2 or 3 cent mark. It hasn't moved, so I think it's in a bit of limbo at the moment. It's one of those projects where all crypto assets are technically a risk, to be honest. But I think for me personally, because I've been holding this for a long time, I've been doing well with the staking, I'm just going to let it ride. If we can get back to like the 15 to 20 cent marks, happy days. If we can go beyond that, if we can smash the previous all-time high and go beyond that, fantastic. I think it's probably a good time actually to jump into the chart via TradingView, because that is where I can kind of talk through really in a bit more detail about where we've been, what we're trying to achieve, what we think it's going to be doing. So you can see here, this is very much a repetition of CoinMarketCap that we just saw a moment ago. And I'm just going to quickly pull in to a bit closer to where we are today. Just get that bit more zoomed in. So this is the last time I probably did a video maybe on Zilliqa. It was early last year. So I'm just going to pull this across. I'm going to move it too much. I'm going to try and keep it in line. It was basically in line with one of the most recent low points we had when I did that chart. I'm just going to put a new one in. This is going to take one of the most recent high points and one of the most recent low points here. We're going to see if that matches up, because this will give us a really good defined area of interest for potential moves upwards. Now, in the downward trend, I mean, the lowest it's kind of gone in these bear markets is around about just over the 1 cent mark. So it could be quite interesting, because we could potentially come and retest that. At the moment in time, we couldn't quite break that 2.5 cent barrier, so it has been fluctuating back up and down 2 cents. It did drop slightly lower to about 1.8, and you can see that it's kind of retraced itself back to this fib level of 2 cents. Now, if you look where I've just put this new one and the previous old one, which I'll stretch across, we can start seeing some really interesting data here, some interesting potential metrics to look out for in the future. So hopefully, if we're buying at these low regions, taking advantage of staking, we're getting good APR there, and we can try and get some tokens to sell into the market when the trend of the price rises, well, hopefully more significantly than it is right now. But let's, for argument's sake, that we go on a nice run like we saw in 2021 and potentially smash that area. We've got a long way to go. So we do have the long-term fib tracement still in here. And there's an argument to say that actually from one of those lower points, in fact, what I'm going to do is take that previous old one there, I believe, or let me get that one, sorry. And I'm just going to move it to one of the low points that we saw. I think it was around about here. So let's say 1.3 or 1.4 cents. I'm just going to move that up to the previous all-time high. Now, I don't think it's going to happen personally, but this is an argument to suggest that in this next bull run, there is a possibility that we could get to that $1 mark. Now, we have actually seen this with Solana over the last few years. That is actually possible. But Zilliqa needs to do a hell of a lot of a bigger job of getting more developers, more projects on its system. And as I said, there's loads of competitors out there now. There's loads more improvements in the ecosystem. So that might be very far-fetched. But what it could at least do, maybe, just maybe, is potentially open up the door for me to try and either, I don't know yet, what I'll do is either sell it all, and maybe just leave a tiny bit of Zilliqa in there, to be fair, when we get to these higher marks, or do the DCAing of the upward trend and see where it takes us. Because as I said, I do still have a bit of belief in Zilliqa that we could go into some really interesting heights. Now, conservatively and possibly more realistically, at this moment in time, I'm not really looking in my mind further than that sort of 10 to 12 cent mark. And that really fits nicely, actually, with one of the recent fib levels that we just put in. The maximum up here at, ironically, 12 cents. Not too far off the mid-range fib levels that we've just moved around at about 13. So that's definitely going to be a target for me, because I missed it out on the last time round to sell a good batch of Zilliqa. I'll make another decision around that point if it ever actually gets to that area, because at this moment in time, March 2024 and December 2024, it wasn't looking great in those push-ups at all. In fact, I'm going to use that word or metaphor of push-ups, because if you were doing push-ups and you were asked to do 10, that looks like someone did 1 or 2 and gave up. In fact, they did one really good one, got a bit of energy, tried to do another one, and it wasn't even a push-up at all. It was just a load of nonsense, and then partially flopped on the floor again. Now we're just waiting for what the third push-up might look like. So can it get back to these previous areas? Who knows? But if it does, it's not a game changer unless you got a significant amount of Zilliqa to go up to around 3.8 cents again. That's why I said my excitement will prevail when we get to like that 10, 12 cent mark. It's got a long way to go. So what we need to see, guys, is in these next few weeks and leading into 2025 significantly throughout the year, is we need to start retesting some of these areas and staying above them. We have to test them, gain that support level and rise. So the actual best support level we need to try and hit is that 2.5 first and foremost. Then upward from that, you can kind of see there's a lot of traction around this area here at the $3.30. Now, if we can tick those off, say in the next 2-3 months, there could be a great opportunity for us to try and hit these barriers up here again around 5-6 cents. There's going to be a lot of other variables, guys. First and foremost, the awareness of Zilliqa again, the marketing ploys, etc., etc. Previously, if I remember correctly, I think her name was Sandra. May have got that completely wrong. She was a big advocate of Zilliqa. I think she moved on now. But that had some really good traction 2 or 3 years ago. Since then, it's kind of died down. The marketing's kind of half disappeared. So we need a lot of reliance on that. We need a lot of the old Zilliqa holders to come back in. And it's kind of telling a bit of a story right now that actually we're not so much relying on the ecosystem, because that does need to play a big part of it. But at the moment, it's not. So what else is going to drive this price up? And that's all I can really think of at this moment in time, outside of the ecosystem story. But that ecosystem story is just not relevant right now, and it needs to pick up the pieces. Can it scrape some off Solana? Can something just spark to ignite Zilliqa again and maybe be that next Solana? And I'm not just saying that as a myth or a cliche, because it is in that bracket. It is in the bracket in terms of the blockchain's ability to host and hold as many projects as it wants, really. Kind of the same argument that we have when you're looking at things like Polygon. Solana won that race out of nowhere. It just threw a lot of money at marketing. It opened up its doors for the networking capabilities, development capabilities, and everyone just flew on it. The low prices, the speed at which it can run. When those projects get bigger and bigger on Solana, it will be really interesting to see how it tests those transactions per second and the speed of networks. I'm not trying to compare it too much with Ethereum, but look over the lows, like 10 or so years, how Ethereum slowed itself down a bit, became more expensive to work on and invest in as well. So it could be further down the line, we'll see. But these projects have some really good scalability opportunities and the sharding aspects in them as well, which kind of defies that logic a bit. So that's my thoughts and feelings on Zilliqa at the moment. In terms of the buying aspects of Zilliqa, well, as I've just mentioned, any kind of moments around the 1 or 2 cent marks in the grand scheme of things are going to be really good buys. If we get to, say, the 10, 12 cent marks, and then beyond that further. The RSIs in the bottom left, bang on, pretty much 40 on the 14-day and 45 on the 28-day respectively. These are good buy points for me in any kind of market that I'm looking at, or any asset class. But it does also just generate in your mind where Zilliqa is compared to where it was a few years back and what it's doing now. So in answer to the question of the overall video, is it worth still investing in Zilliqa? I think it's worth still holding if you still got it, irrespective of whether you've broken even, you're in negative or in positive. I'm clinging on to the fact that it has great opportunity ahead. If it can just switch certain things on, it could go absolutely parabolic. That is why I'm holding it. If you're new to Zilliqa, you have to think about all those different things, but you also know, probably from your experiences already in crypto, whether it's a short term or long term that you've been already in the markets, is that there's a lot of other networks and blockchains out there, a lot of upcoming ones that may not have fully launched yet, but have maybe a bigger capacity, a bigger opportunity than Zilliqa. But I'm resting on the laurels that the Zilliqa team is fantastic. It's got good history. It's got a good ecosystem already. It's prepped. It's ready to go if it really wants to. Maybe it was a bit too early in 2021. Everything was quite new, exciting in crypto, and everything was kind of riding that storm back then. Maybe it wasn't quite ready. But, Zilliqa has been around for a number of years now. It's time. Is this the kind of like make or break year? Who knows? Let us know your comments below. Let me know if you're still holding Zilliqa, if you're selling it, or you've canned it ages ago. Just let me know. But if you want to see more Zilliqa videos, do please let me know in the comments. But I won't be focusing on Zilliqa videos unless we see some drastic action, or I might just keep an eye on doing some YouTube shorts here and there. But I just thought I'd do a quick update because I like to be transparent with my portfolio, but also my thoughts and feelings on some of these older projects before I start talking about some of the new ones. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next Zilliqa video. Bye bye.